Everything's perfectly all right now. We're fine. We're all fine here now. Thank you. How are you?
Everything is fine here on Detention Block AA 23, a Star Wars podcast. I'm Mike, joined by Bogie, here to talk Star Wars, specifically to talk about Andor. As we all know, that show recently wrapped up. What was that? A week, 2 weeks ago? So I know I talked through my thoughts on the show last week. So excited to have Bogie here to express his thoughts and questions and everything. And we'll talk through the show as its entirety. First of all, just to get the business elements out of the way, if I can talk. If you're listening to us, hit that subscribe button, like this video, comment, rate, review, all the above. We greatly appreciate any little thing that you do because those things do definitely help get our podcast and YouTube channel name out there amongst all the other Star Wars channels. Our our chat is up and running, so come be a part of the conversation, express your thoughts and questions and ideas, theories, all of it. And as a reminder, once we hit 200 subscribers, we will have a prize giveaway. So make sure to subscribe and ensure that you're public. And that way I know who you are and can include you in on the drawing. So, but Bogey, good to have you back. It was kind of funny because before we jumped on, we probably spent an hour and a half almost catching up on everything. And holy crap, there was a lot to catch up on. So it's been maybe is fun the right word to say what all we had talked through. Interesting to say the least, but glad to have you back to talk about some Andor. So welcome back, Bogey.
Yeah,
How you
thanks.
doing?
Doing all right? Yeah, it's been a fun ride the last month and a half, I'd say, of all the stories we shared because we haven't caught up in a while. But it was good stories and funny laughs.
we
Let's
we
just
got
say
we
that
definitely
much.
got some good laughs in there. Hashtag life. Let's
Yeah,
just say
hashtag life. I like it.
that. But it's good that we can come back and talk Star Wars. Um, so I don't where do we want to start with this? I will throw the spoiler tag. It's been a while, so if you haven't watched the show yet, that's on you. But if you haven't yet and you don't want anything spoiled, press pause, go watch the rest of the episodes, and then come back and listen to our thoughts. So spoiler tag and or all episodes, you've been warned. Uh, where do we want to start?
As Darth Vader said, "You've been warned." As he's choking what's her name out.
Yep.
Um, I guess we can start. Maybe just like I'll start at the beginning at some point, but should we just do like an overall rating now,
Yeah.
or
What what
do that at the end?
no, let's do that now and then we can revisit it too to see if like conversation has changed any of
Has
that.
changed
So
our feelings. That's what
so
I kind of like that.
so overall from start to finish, how did this show hit for you?
Overall, it was good. It's a little different than your typical Star Wars if you're looking for lightsaber battles, force users, the key elements that Star Wars seems to like really drive home on and sometimes overkill like acolytes. Um, and some of like even I felt like the one thing I wish there was more, but again, I liked kind of like it was really grounded, but I would have liked maybe a little bit of like, but I guess we got that in like the early episodes with the TIE Interceptor prototype
Sure,
that,
sure,
but you didn't see much more after that for like like space conflicts.
sure.
I would have liked to seen a little bit more of that.
Yeah.
Um, but
I mean, it's Star Wars, right? So you want it in the
you wanted
skies,
to,
the galaxy, you want
yeah.
those space battles. I
The more
get it.
space action. I
Hmm.
thought that TIE Interceptor was really cool. That was like prototype because everyone says it's a TIE fighter, but that's not a TIE fighter. That's a TIE Interceptor,
Yeah,
and
it's a
it's
tie advanced. That's what
yeah
they're called. Tie
advanced
advanced.
because you can
Hmm.
see how much bigger it is. It can actually fit like several people in that like
Yeah,
cockpit area, and
yeah,
how much bigger, and then like the fins actually like extend in the back
yeah.
further. So, but anyways, carry on to the overall thoughts of the season. It was like very grounded and had this very much like this tactical espionage of like
Hmm.
spies against spies, who's conjuring against who's trying to maybe betray. Sometimes there was just like you're watching and you're like, oh, I don't know if you can trust that person or not. Um, so overall, I guess that was like kind of a different approach to like a Star Wars story
Yeah,
that was different, and I think it worked.
yeah.
So overall,
But
I give that a solid like kind of a A minus overall on like the story writing for the
yeah,
season.
I like how you commented about the who's going to betray who, because I feel like, especially in the beginning part of the season two, like I was looking at everyone and being like, this person could betray that person, or the other person could be like, for instance, Cyril or Deidre. Like, all right, one of these people is going to betray the other. I don't know who it's going to be, but it's just kind of developing that way. Anyone in the Empire, it seemed like, okay, these people could betray them, or even like, is Luthen going to betray Lonnie, or is Luthen going to betray even Cassian? Like, it just, you had question marks around everyone, and you were just trying to like figure out, take in all the information you were given, and be like, all right, where's this going to go, and who's going to do what? So there was kind of an entertainment level to that. It felt very Game of Throne esque in that regard, especially with how, and I think you're going to get to this at some point, but like how they were jumping around between different people's stories, that felt very Game of Thrones esque, uh, especially early on in Game of Thrones, because you're like, I feel it's hard to follow all of these stories because there's so many of them. Um, but I talked about Andor last week, and I, in terms of like story, in terms of production, in terms of acting and all that, like I really felt the show knocked it out of the park. In terms of production, I understand the whole Star Wars-esque element to it, because yeah, it does feel less Star Wars because you don't have lightsabers, you don't have battles, you don't have the Force. I guess you have the Force healer, but that's as far as they go with using the Force in this show. Um, but I think that also kind of gave an interesting take to it. I really enjoyed just the Empire and rebellion aspect to it. Like, you're looking at your everyday normal Joe and Janes living in a galaxy that's controlled by the Empire, and like getting fed up with it. And it was, I know we in season one, because when you're on Ferrix, you get that little smaller revolt. Because remember, Cassian's mom kind of like initiated that through her death, and she had that message, and then that's kind of what started that like conflict on Ferrix. And then in this season, you kind of get something similar, but it's definitely escalated a lot more with the Gormans and the Gorman massacre.
Which that is interesting because I think they used, like you said, the season one aspect,
Yep,
starting like a revolt, a riot or protest.
yep,
Here, here the whole time because it progresses, year by year per episode or however the progression goes. But it was like this
hmm,
whole idea of like, let's try to use that again against Gorman and make them look like the enemies for like the rest of the galactic
yeah,
Senate that the
yep,
Empire controls.
yep,
'Cause I liked that at the end because like they were like making all these after that whole protest and then all of a sudden it turned into like a huge riot
yep,
between stormtroopers and the civilians. Um, I think it was like the next episode you had Senator Organa was the only one on the agenda list. Everybody else that had something to say, we were all saying Gormans are terrorists and we need to take like, and it was exactly what the Empire wanted
yep,
until Senator Organa took the floor and said, "I have someone that needs to say something." And it was Mon Mothma who really, I think, opened the eyes, like what is being said and what is the truth.
yep,
I thought that speech was amazing to like just like kick off because then she has to escape, and Cassian's the one that like intercepts her to like save her. Well, she had like I don't know who hired the other two that were supposed to like save her, but one of them was actually
Bail. It was Bail
there.
Organa, but
Bail
they were,
Organa.
but he didn't know that one of them was a traitor. It's because that's when who was it that was talking about, well, can you trust them? Um,
And he said, "Have you ever met them?"
yeah, and
And he's
Bale
like,
said no, right?
"How do you know? How do you know you can trust them?" He's like, "I can't."
I can't, right? So, I mean, I don't, it was maybe oversight from Bail Organa, but it's not that like he intended those things to happen because Bail Organa obviously wants to help Mon Mothma, but he just his partners got infiltrated a little bit by the Empire. So
Which goes back to what we were saying earlier. You don't know who you can trust, who's going to betray who's the insider type
that
thing.
was really one of the main messages from this show is like who you can trust. And,
That's why I said the phrase tactical espionage of like
yeah,
finding what is our tactical approach to this situation and how do we win.
yeah,
Maybe it doesn't need blasters or lightsabers. Maybe it's through corruption of these individuals to turn. Because that was another thing I enjoyed. That was like Mon Mothma. What was her like child friend that was like helping like either launder or figure out how to like move her money to help fund the rebellion.
yeah, that guy.
And then he was kind of like deuces, I'm out.
He was in it for his own personal gain,
Gain,
which
yeah.
you never thought that at all from the
I
first season.
I
It
didn't at
totally
all. I didn't see that
blindsided
coming.
me. And you could tell he was becoming more of a loose cannon from because what his wife separated from him. So his like, you know, grasp on life was loosening up a little bit. So then he started to falter and then I think he just what wanted the money and that's essentially all he wanted. But
Pretty much, yeah.
yeah, I did not see that coming. So yeah, him betraying her. So another aspect of betrayal. Um, but yeah, I really enjoy because I was talking about like you have the Ferrex riot, and then you've got the Gorman massacre. And if you think about it, before the show Andor came, you knew the Empire was bad, but you didn't really know to what level. And sure, like on Rebels, you've kind of got some insight, but it's a cartoon. They're not going to be as like blunt as with like the violence and everything compared to like what this show brought. I mean, that Gorman massacre was pretty intense. And I mean, releasing those K2 droids and they're just like throwing people to the ground and stuff. And you're like, oh, geez, this is brutal. And it's also kind of fascinating too, like how violent it was without really showing any blood or any like gore. I think there were a couple of times where you saw a little bit of blood, but like nothing massive. But it was just really interesting to see the level that the Empire was going to get their way. And for Gorman, it was to obtain that mineral for what was it the
The Kyber.
shielding. Well, the Kyber because it wasn't Kyber on Kyber was coming from Jeddah.
I thought they were mining also because I
It was
mean,
like something alite calamite or something like that.
and what's that like a piece of like armor material for
Well, they
the
were going to use it as like a casing for this for the primary weapon, that like
the dish.
yeah, the dish. It was like some kind of coating or casing on the panels on there or something. Krennic mentioned it at one point and it was like all you really got from it, um but yeah, the mineral that they were getting was for that. And you go back to that episode where Krennic is talking to Deidre and like, what do we need to do? Some of the other empire or Imperials were like, well, why don't we just do like stage a natural disaster or something? And they're like, we've tried that. It gets too messy. And then Deidre was like, you need to get Gormans to like behave like rebelliously. And that was like the trigger that they were springing in the trap, which was successful. But all just for a mineral. They were essentially turning Gorman to look, like you said, to look like the bad guy attacking the Empire. So very fascinating.
But yeah,
Um,
back to the whole season itself. So I like said that's a solid grading for the story, acting knocked out of the park, A plus. I don't know if there was any specific actor I was like, I don't like him. Even like as much as I didn't like Cyril, the villain
yeah,
from like mainly the first one, but then he was kind of like in this one with what's her name, Deidre.
yep,
Um, Never liked him, but they played a very good villainous I mean, when you don't like them because of how much of a villainous they are,
They're doing a
it's
good
good
job of
acting.
acting. Yeah,
So
exactly.
so like I said, they knock it out of the park. I just feel bad for Cyril's character because when he on Gorman when shit hits the fan because he thought he was doing good and these guys are the bad guys. But when we started seeing the massacre and he talked to Deidre was like, "This was the plan all along." He's like, "Did you use me or something?" You can tell like they were done. And he walks outside and he just looks around and he can tell like, "What have I done to
Yep.
help? I've helped provoke this."
Yep.
And you're seeing like civilians, I'm saying like women, children probably just getting in the middle of the blaster fire, and you can tell the look on his face until he looks over. Then he sees Cassian, and all of a sudden his rage just turned back on. He's like, "It's all because of you that
Yep.
started this." And then they got in a scruffle, but then he ended up not like he like lowered because he's like Cassian's like, "Who are you?" And he like lowered his blaster, but then he gets blasted in the head. Like, well, is that how he goes out? Like, that sucks.
Which is like, if you think about it, it's really deep. So the fact that Cassian turns to him and is like, "Who are you?" Like in Cyril's mind, this whole thing, like Cyril clearly remembers Cassian. Like in a crowd of a massacre of all these people and clouds and everything, he sees him and he's like, "That's the guy that started this all for me." And then it not being reciprocated, being like, "I don't even know who you are." Like that had to be like a knife to the heart to Cyril.
For
Like,
someone telling
I'm
you
just a
that.
nobody to you. And I don't know, that's so powerful. And I feel like many things like that happen to these characters where like what you think could be the worst thing to happen to them wasn't, but what ended up happening was the worst thing. Like, look at Deidre's character, for instance. Like, she's spending her whole time in this show, like, trying to build her ranks within the Empire. And to do that, like, really, like, targeting in on the rebels and trying to prevent any kind of rebel, like, uprising to the Empire. Like, that's her job, especially focusing on what Axis, which is Luthen, and to progress through this story. And at the very end, Krennic coming in and her being arrested, like essentially being like tagged as someone who's betraying the Empire when she's trying to do everything for the Empire. And not only that, Krennic calling her a rebel. Like that had to be just like a slap to the face to her. Like everything she's been doing in her career and in her recent life has been against the rebels. And now she's falsely being accused as a rebel because of how things played out. Because she happened to, through some connections, the information about the Death Star being released and Krennic being able to tie that back to her. And then you see her kind of in the prison of the Empire, like it's the same place that Andy Serkis's character, Narkina 5 or something like that, where the
We
prison
don't know.
is.
There might be other cell bases
Right. It could be
other than
other
that.
prison locations that are very similar.
They're just built standard like that with their outfits. But like, I mean, very easily. That would have been awesome though at the very end if she was in their prison cell. I mean, granted, she's probably just in an old women's like
Mm-hmm.
section. But if
Mm-hmm.
it was like Andy Serkis was like across from her, wouldn't that be something?
Like there's a shot like you're in the wall, and in one side it's like Andy Serkis and her. It's
Yeah.
it's Deidre, but just very symbolic too, because like the Empire always had her caged in terms of the work that she's doing, and then her actually being literally caged in by the Empire as a result of what she'd done. Like that stuff is super deep and super fascinating. And
And I
then
just
you,
wonder too, like they found someone in there, like, which I like about the aspect of the Empire of this like background, like central intelligence,
yeah,
like group of
the
like
ISB,
the ISB, yeah, and like and how they operate and how they gotta like like your job is like infiltrate and you're all assigned sectors of the whatever galaxy and you gotta if shit hits the fan, you're in trouble.
yep,
So I think sometimes when they had those meetings, I think they would say something and they'd call someone out and they're like, I think didn't one was like, we don't have enough people,
yeah,
and so, but I always felt like they set up these plans, and I felt like Deidre was just set up to be if it doesn't work, you're the fall guy.
Yeah.
That's always felt like, and I always thought maybe Cyril was going to be the one portraying her, or like you said before, or she was going to like throw him under the bus.
Right.
So I was like that whole storyline was entertaining throughout the season to see how that plays out.
Yeah. Well, and you were talking about like the ISB, and it's very interesting because if you remember in season one, uh, is his name Partagas, Major Partagas, the older guy that is linked with Deidre in that
Yep.
ISB. Because he asked the question, "What are we here for?" And like Deidre's like, "Order, blah 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 blah," and he's like, "Good response. That's the exact definition, but that's wrong. We're healthcare. We're cleansing the galaxy of like the sickness of like the rebellion and rebels and everything." Um, so you saying that just made me think of that line and how things unfolded. But I don't know. I really loved the storytelling element of this show. Like Tony Gilroy did a phenomenal job. If you took the Star Wars tag off of this, like it would still be a really good show. I feel like. And
Oh yeah.
I'm curious how well I mean, if you look at the ratings and reviews of it, like the episodes are getting 9.8s and 9.7s and what IMDb or high scores and Rotten Tomato. Like the audience is really receiving it well.
And the other thing too, like I think throughout the entire season, there wasn't a whole lot. Like everything was very practical effects. I don't recall too much like how it's Star Wars. So you can imagine there're going to be like a lot of
CGI.
CGI
Hmm.
going on. I don't like I said, it's so grounded in a way that it makes it feel so real.
Yeah. And I like when Star Wars does that. Like, I don't know if it was on set locate like filming. I'm sure there was some CGI elements to it, but not noticeable. But like because it felt like on set filming, whether it was or not, it makes it feel like that expansive universe that Star Wars is. Because then I think back to like Acolyte or even the Kenobi show, where it was filmed with that. It's like a screen. It's like a circular screen that's like interactive, so that when the actors are acting, they can see like what is being portrayed behind them instead of just like a green screen where they have no idea what's going to be added in with the screen. I don't know the name of the technology, but it allows them to understand elements around them a little more. But when they use that, everything feels so condensed. Everything seems smaller, almost like studio filming type thing. And it just makes everything feel so small. And Star Wars to me is supposed to be like huge, expansive. And you really got some of those expansive shots in this show. Like when you're seeing planets, you're seeing large cities with, I mean, even the Coruscant shots were amazing. You see there's a lot going on behind them. There's ships all over the place flying around. Or even when there's like planets that aren't as inhabited, there's wildlife. I mean, they showed Yavin and everything, and there's wildlife going on around them and everything. So it helped with the expansive feeling that it was less CGI and more what was the term you were using? Grounded.
Yeah, grounded and
Yeah,
in practical
and
effects.
practical effects. Yeah. So I agree.
And then you brought up Tony Gilroy. Yeah, what a great job between him helping out with the Rogue One and them asking him to come back and like, can you help kind of be the showrunner for season 1 and 2 of Andor that leads up into Rogue One that you were the kind of the main showrunner kind of writer for that movie. But it was sad because I think I heard, either read or about an interview or saw an interview that he doesn't that his chapter in Star Wars in his life is done.
Yeah, he
So it's like another like you get someone great that backs out. That's kind of like
it's like what
someone who
about
finally knows how to do it right.
yeah. And it's like Tony Gilroy, there's a line Mon Mothma gives in Return of the Jedi that was many Bothans died to obtain this information. It's like for the second Death Star. Can you do something for that too? Because you did it for the first Death Star very well. Can we do it for the second Death Star as
Like
well?
a little prequel to the third one of like,
Yeah,
can we see that storyline?
yeah. And I mean, you don't even have to do second Death Star. Like, what about events leading into the Empire Strikes Back or something like that? I, even though people might say like they're done, everyone has their price. And like depending on how well this show like does for Disney and for Star Wars, I wouldn't be surprised if it is very successful. Disney turns around and it's like, all right, Tony Gilroy, name us your price. And
Here's a
we have
here's a blank check.
bottomless pockets. We have a check that we can fill out to any what number you want. What will it take for you to come back and do another story? I would be all for it because I mean, Rogue One to me was the best Disney Star Wars movie. And then I, I'm sorry to say, I have to say that Andor has been my favorite Star Wars show that Disney's done. Mandalorian is very good. Don't get, I
But
mean,
when we talk about beginning to end,
beginning to end, that season 3 of Mandalorian kind of,
oof.
but
Yeah.
I will say Mandalorian does feel a lot more Star Wars compared to
Yeah.
Andor. There's a lot more of that Star Wars element to that show, but the writing isn't as great. It's good. It's not as great as Andor. The acting is a lot better in Andor, so there are elements to Andor that make it better. The only thing I just wish we got more K2 in the show. I was bummed that we didn't really get him until the last 3 episodes, the last day that they released. We did get one line of him that they teased at the end of, was that the end of, or maybe that was the end of the first episode of the last 3. Yeah, because Cassian obtained him at the end of 2 years out from Rogue One, and then 1 year out was when we got to see him, right?
Yeah, that sounds right.
But like, and even in the last 3 episodes, the first episode was essentially just Luthen and Clea. So it wasn't until the second of the last 3 episodes that we got K2SO and his glory. And like, I found myself laughing so many times when he's like
It,
speaking.
every time he was on screen, it was golden.
Yeah.
I feel like we didn't get enough, but I gotta say, I gotta love. It's Star Wars. We got to do a hallway scene,
Oh yeah.
and when he's just taking out stormtroopers and using the one as like a shield.
Yeah.
Oh, that was awesome.
So Luke has a hallway scene, Vader has a hallway scene, and K2SO has a hallway scene. It's all well, I guess Darth Maul has one in Clone Wars as well, but Star Wars and hallway scenes, they do pretty well. And K2SO, man, that was and then at the end of that, his line, I have Cassian, I have cleared a path.
He's so blunt and
Yeah,
straightforward.
exactly.
I can't remember what he said, and he's like when they were going in, he's like, "Stay with the ship." He's like, "Ugh, why do I gotta stay with the ship?" And he's like, "You won't blend in." He's like, "Well, duh, there's a bunch of Imperial droids. Why wouldn't I blend in?"
Yeah.
Just like the smartassness is just, oh, it's just golden writing, and
Yeah.
I think this is the same voice actor, right, that came
Yeah,
back.
Andy Tudyk. Yep, it's
Yeah,
Andy Tudyk.
yeah.
And him like as he's first coming into the building and the first Imperial he encounters, he just like and the guy just
Yeah.
goes sailing out. Yeah.
But
Do do you have clearance here? Nope.
no. Yeet.
Yep. Oh God.
I
And
mean,
it's like,
I had to get my fill after not getting enough of him. I did jumped right after I got done with the third episode, jumped right into Rogue One, and
I
then I got my fill.
I waited till the next day because I it took me until like 1:30 in the morning to watch that final episode of Andor because I was planning that night just to watch the first one. And I'm like, oh, this is good. I need to watch the next one. And then the next one kind of gives you that cliffhanger right before that whole hallway scene. And I'm like, all right, I'm gonna watch the last one and be done with it. So then when I finished that, I was like, okay, I'm going to bed. But tomorrow I'm watching Rogue One, and man, it was a great continuation into Rogue
Segways,
One. Yep, the
segues
segue,
perfect.
it was so smooth.
Ju-
Um,
Just like how Rogue One, I mean, again, it's Tony Gilroy, like how he segued Rogue One right into New Hope. It
mhm.
was just it because right now at the end is Cassian pretty much going on that mission that
Yep,
begins Rogue One.
yep. Yeah, Kafrene, he's given the mission to go meet Tivik on Kafrene, and that's who you see him with at the beginning of Rogue One, and he's the guy that shoots. He's the partner that Cassian shoots and kills when they're trying to escape, and he's like, "Well, you're going to weigh me down, so I'm going to off you." So interesting to find out that Tivik guy is one of Saw Gerrera's um, soldiers or people or whatnot.
Is that Forrest Whitaker?
Yeah, Forrest Whitaker is Saw Gerrera. So Tivik, the guy he meet, I don't think we knew that when watching the Rogue One.
I don't
That
think so.
Tivik was one of Saw Gerrera's people, but
He's another character when we say not enough K2SO. It seemed like he kind of was like in it, but not enough.
yeah,
And how the show ends, where it's like, well, he's not going to be too long in the future when Cassian's going to get captured. They all get captured by his rebel fleet or whatever in their
yeah,
little base on Jeddah. But he's looking out the window and he doesn't have he just has the armor.
yeah,
I'm like, something must like, I was hoping something was going to happen drastically because and he had all his limbs in the movie. He's got prosthetic legs
yep.
and he's got the gas mask thing to breathe in.
Well, I think
Like,
that gas mask thing is, I don't think that's like oxygen. I think that's the, so remember the episode where they release that gas or whatever, and he's like, breathe it in. I think it's like almost like a drug and it gives him a high. So I think he's got that like cased up. So when he does that, he's like essentially taking in a drug that I don't know
okay.
does something for him.
So,
I
yeah, if that's true, then okay, that answers that. But still, I still remember I was watching
the
Rogue One and
prosthetic, yeah, he has
he's walking.
prosthetic leg.
You see his like metallic legs. I'm like, well, I'm pretty sure he's had his normal limbs in the right
Yeah,
before the at the end. So and clearly, I mean, I guess he'd leave to your own imagination. Like some writers like to keep it at, where it's like, I don't need to show that. Obviously, he's in a lot of battles, so he probably lost his legs.
yeah.
So
No, good point. Yeah, and I mean Forrest Whitaker is great, and he did a good job of Saw. So,
yeah, and I'm
um,
surprised, something like that. He came back for somewhat of a limited role, but I guess
yeah.
I don't know what his schedule's even like. The one person I was like a little upset, but I think they found a great replacement in Benjamin Bratt for
Oh,
Senator Organa.
yeah.
But
He
that
did a
I
good
forget that.
job. He did a good
Yeah,
job. But I
but
wish
I
it was
like
still what's his face.
the guy before. Really, I liked it a lot when he was in Revenge of the Sith, and then anything after that, he was in the Obi-Wan series to
Yeah.
tell Obi-Wan go save Leia, and I think you see him here and there. Don't you see him in? You see him in Rogue One, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you see him
Yeah,
in
he's in
Rogue
Rogue One.
One.
Because Mon Mothma asked, like, because he has someone in mind. Because Mon Mothma
No,
asked the Jedi, you know a Jedi? He's like, yeah, I do. And then she's
I
like,
don't
well,
think
we
she
got to
asked
get
that.
a
She's like,
hold of him and send. And he was referring to Princess Leia when she's asked, do you know someone? And then do you trust him? And he's like, I trust her with my life. And he was
yeah,
referring to Leia.
yep.
But like again, they both did a great job. But the original Bail Organa's demeanor is a little different from the newer guy. The newer guy is a little more like stoic, a little more rough around the edges, where the original guy was more like, I don't know, Family Guy, or not the show Family Guy, but more of a, I don't know, nicer demeanor to him. Because it almost seemed like Bail Organa in this show was not as trustful or reliable, because there's the infiltrator that comes in his crew when they're trying to escort Mon Mothma, and he's also being resisting to Cassian when Cassian's like, they're building this weapon you know, Luthen dedicated his life to bringing this message. You have to believe him. And Bail Organa's like, well, that guy's insane. Like, how can we trust that guy? And the only one that believed Cassian was Mon Mothma. So it's like, you know, through watching Bail Organa in the past, you're always like, yeah, Bail, like you've got our back and everything. And then this one, you're like, Bail, come on, get along with everything. Like you're missing out here. This what Cassian is saying is true.
I
So
love I love in that scene though when he's trying to tell like in that little like battle room planning or whatever, and he's on Yavin and he's trying to like explain like this is important. This Luthen lost his life for this. Like
yeah,
that this is happening, and I have I've seen things and been told things like this has happened and this needs to be it's going to be ready and we're going to be screwed if it comes here or whatever.
yeah.
And when he said like Luthen shared this, you can know some people like knew who he was, but everyone else in the room was like, who the fuck is Luthen? Because
That is true.
he kept himself very private.
Yeah. Yep.
So that's why it's funny. Like you could tell half the room was just like, who's he talking about?
I did think it was
I think he's losing it.
I did think it was really cool that they brought back like the actors who portrayed those people because they're all in Rogue One
Oh
as
yeah.
well. And they brought like the same cast. I love that we got more Admiral Radis.
Oh yep.
Because I mean, that guy played such a pivotal role in Rogue One, and he just didn't get much screen time. And he's like, this guy really saved the rebellion, saved the galaxy too, because in Rogue One, when Cassian and crew are going to Scarif to obtain the plans, like the rebellion was like, we don't want anything to do with this. Like the whole council agreed, we're not going to help. So you're going on your own. And when they left, Bradis is like, I'm going to go help them out because if I don't, everyone's screwed. So like,
And like when he's like, who's to tell me otherwise? I'm the one that has all the like the fleet power.
exactly.
They have
But
all the ships. Because I want to know like their species because it just seems like it without because like
Calamari.
okay because like the because like then you have General Akbar
Yeah.
like kind of takes over afterwards and like
Yep.
it's always like they're the ones that like are like the generals in charge of all these ships that they
Yeah.
have.
Yeah.
So it's like now granted are they probably getting funding overall by the rebellion maybe to build these ships maybe but I could tell that they're just like screw you I'm gonna do what I want
Well, and
what I
clone
believe is best.
that's where like Clone Wars really becomes helpful for this too, because like the Mon Calamari, their planet was essentially attacked by the Federation, the Trade Federation, and their whole like species and everything was in danger. And the Jedi helped the Mon Calamari, and the Republic did. So I think there's like this. I know the Republic turned into the Empire, but I think the Mon Calamari, like they're understanding who the good side is in this situation, and they trust like the Jedi and everything. So I think they feel like this obligation to be on the good side. So I think that's why the Mon Calamari has always been associated with the good guys in Star Wars. Um, but yeah, just seeing Admiral Radis, more screen time for him, like it really helped pay him justice because it was definitely deserved from what he did in Rogue One. And then you even got a call to Merrick. So Merrick, if you remember from Rogue One, is the pilot, essentially the main pilot guy. He ends up dying in Rogue One. His X-Wing gets shot down. But
Oh yeah, yeah, that guy. Yep.
yep, his
Red, it
name
was like
so
red leader or no blue leader.
it might have
He was
been Blue Leader.
he was blue leader. I know for
Okay.
after watching
I
it,
know it's Blue
I always love this.
Squadron,
He's the
so
one
it
that
would
like
make sense.
where he's flying, but it's like towards the end where they're all kind of losing, and he goes, "Ah!"
Yeah, it's him. So that's Merrick. And while they're on Yavin and Andor, in one of the later episodes, they said that Merrick and someone else are away but are due back soon. It might have been Radis. They might have said Radis and Merrick are due back soon. So it's cool that we got a call to Merrick because you would think he would be there, but they probably couldn't find the actor to come, do the show. So we'll do a call to him. We won't actually bring him in, but just some people from Rogue One getting some justice
And
in
then
this
even
show.
like nowadays, if they can't make it but can sign off, can we use your name? How you can use AI now to
Yeah.
regenerate people's voices is ridiculous.
Yeah. Um, Loved all the Yavin stuff. The only another thing that I wish we got a little more about, because so obviously we see Yavin kind of becoming the headquarter base for the rebellion here. And we saw that was the planet that Cassian also landed on, that he got encountered with those rebel brigades too that like capture him. They think he's like an Imperial pilot because those are like people fighting for the rebellion. But they just think he's part of the Empire. But that's on the planet Yavin that happens, because when he flies away, when he actually finally gets away, you see the pyramids in the background. But then the next
Oh
time
yeah.
we see Yavin,
Well,
it's like the Republic is there. So what happened in between where the rebels were like, okay, we're going to put our headquarters here at Yavin?
one thing, it's not even just the pyramids. They always got to show the scene wherever someone's landing or leaving. There's that guy on the radar gun on the tower. Like I laughed with a buddy one time. He's like, "What is he, the police? What is he gonna pull him over from there? Like just sitting on a tower, just
Hey, have you seen the Family Guy episodes of Star Wars?
uh, it's been a while,
Because
but yeah,
there's a
I have.
scene from, I think it's the first one, when all the X-wings and Y-wings are flying away to go after the Death Star. They
Yeah.
show him, and he's got that radar thing, and he just goes "Pachoo, pachoo."
Oh yeah, just pretending.
Yeah.
I remember that now. Yeah.
um, but yeah, really cool that we got more Yavin.
Just
Um,
to see like kind of the early stages of like their base camp too. Like you can
yeah,
tell it's pretty premature.
yeah,
And like they're kind of scrambling and not knowing. You could tell like a little disoriented or disorganized in a
yep,
way.
yeah, for sure.
You can tell it's definitely early stages that they picked this place. And each job in fours, is that technically like a planet or a moon?
Because I think my understanding was Yavin was the actual planet. I'm gonna look this up because it's gonna drive me crazy. Maybe Yavin
Yeah, because that's why I thought I was
or
confused. One time I think I saw it say Yavin, and then another time it said Yavin 4. Like is it
is
like
okay. So Yavin. Oh, I just said it. Okay, yeah. So Yavin 4 is the fourth moon in orbit around the red gas giant Yavin Prime. So that's what I thought. So Yavin, the actual Yavin is that red big planet that you
yep.
see. Yavin 4 is one of the moons that's revolving around Yavin.
See,
That's
but you
what
don't need to look it up. I'm trivia master here.
I trivia master for sure. Um,
Which I got off topic a little bit. Petersons and myself went to that Star Wars trivia at Insight
oh yeah,
again. And it was just super crowded again. It was even worse. They had like TV set up to play like Nintendo 64 Pod Racer.
sure.
They had Battlefront open up on Xbox. Like
Was
they had
this
all
for
these
May 4th?
yeah, the May 4th weekend, but it was
Yeah,
May 3rd. It was technically May 3rd.
sure.
We got there kind of early. We couldn't find a seat, and there was like this couple, or no, it was brother sister. They were doing the trivia, and we got there kind of late. So the trivia was like almost over, and we had Sophia with, so like we couldn't figure out where to sit, and they were standing there, and they're like, they had like a big booth, and like just sit with us. I'm like, okay, get to know more new people. We
Yeah.
sit down, he goes, but you got to help me with one question. So I got to ask you this because I knew it right because I want to see if Peterson knew, and he goes, I don't know. This guy should. He like points at me like this guy will
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
What planet is Cloud City on?
Bespin.
Yep. Okay. But I answered because they were actually pretty good all their answers. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, some of these I wouldn't know, but like because he was going like back from the previous rounds, some of the
Yeah.
questions as they were waiting for the next question to show up. But yeah, right away I was like, best bet. He goes, oh yeah, that's what it is. Like I was like, Mud would be proud.
I'm so proud. Well, and I'll never forget the question that the name of the dog for George Lucas, right? Indy.
Yeah.
And you got
Yeah.
that, you knew that one. I had no clue what that one was.
Well, I was super mad because I remember hearing that in an interview because he puts that in the line in the third Indiana Jones. with Sean Connery. What's it? You know,
Um, yeah, there's Temple Doom, there's Raiders of the Lost Ark, and Last
those
Crusade.
Last Crusade. When he's like getting, well, when they're going through, I think they're maybe horseback riding in the desert, or I don't know where they are. And Sean Connery says something like your name's not in, because like apparently Indiana Jones technically is not his first name, but he took it as a nickname.
Sure.
And Sean Connery goes, "Well, yeah, of course he wants it, because that's what I named the dog." And I was like, "That's weird." So I like Googled it one time, and I was like, "Oh, that's why George Lucas wanted to make a reference to his dog in
Dog.
the movie." So that's how somehow that just stuck in my head. I was like,
Yeah, that's awesome.
and I remember when that question came up though, I was like, it was bugging the heck out of me because I couldn't like, I was like, I know this, I know this. And I think I like went and grabbed a drink and like was pacing around, and I was like, boom, light bulb went off, and I came over to you. I was like, that's the answer.
It's indie. Yeah, I
I
remember
think
it.
it's like Indiana for full, but Indy for
Sure,
short
it
or
calls
something
him
like that.
indie.
But that's how George Lucas came up with the name for the main character for Indiana Jones,
Sure.
was to like tribute to his dog, because I think his dog might have passed or something
Okay.
during the filming of the
Filming.
first or second one, or I don't know.
That's pretty cool though.
But anyway,
Um,
let's get back on track.
yeah, so back to Andor. What other things do you have? I know you've got like a list of you got a
So
notebook.
I guess, okay, one great quote that I enjoyed throughout the entire movie that I want to make it like a code word. I have many friends.
Isn't that awesome?
And I love how Luthen said that to Mon Mothma. And then when she's trying to escape and doesn't know who to trust, and Cassian comes out of nowhere, and she's like, I don't know who. She's like, he like, as they're like, I forget where they're like, maybe in the elevator thing. He's like, I have many friends. Like,
Yeah.
that was a code name. Like,
Yep.
oh, Luthen sent you. Like,
Yep. She knew at that point.
who to trust.
Yep.
So I really enjoyed how that was used throughout the show as like a code name of like, you know,
Yeah, because Val used it. Did Clea use it? Clea might have used it. Which, speaking of Clea, so I found this out after the fact, like within the last week. We talked about like how great the acting was in this. Did you know this was Clea's first acting role in anything? And she was phenomenal.
including like, because she was in Andor 1, right? Season
Yeah,
1.
so season one was her first,
So season 1 and 2,
was her
whole,
introduction into acting. It's like, really? Like
well,
you've
clearly
got a
she went to
future for you.
clearly she's natural or went to acting school, unlike the guy that played Han Solo in the
Right.
Solo.
But it was so I was listening to an interview, and so she um goes for the, what do you call it, like not the rehearsal, the audition for the show, and her practice or whatnot went really well. And then they're like, all right, we want you to speak with, we want you to interact with another actor. And they chose Skarsgård. And they told her, okay, you'll be talking opposite of Skarsgård. And she was like, excuse me. Like, she got really nervous at that point, but like in the actual audition did very well. And just a tribute to like what kind of performance she put on, because I mean there are many good actors in this show, but the fact that she did so well and this was her first job, like again, you've got a
I
future
would
in
I
acting
would
for
not
you.
I would not have guessed that. I would have
No,
said
I wouldn't have
I would
either.
say she's young but somewhat seasoned actress.
Yeah,
That's
she
crazy.
seemed like
This
she
is
knew
a
what she was doing.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. Which like leads to like some of like the more, I guess, in this season, or yeah, in this entire like season, the kind of the emotional things that
Hmm.
like hit me hard. I did not like how Luthen went out.
Mm.
It was just kind of abrupt, but I get it because you're like running out of screen time for the rest of the season, and we got to wrap this up. And we know he's not in Rogue One, so it's like, okay, so it's pretty much, what is it? Does he? Oh yeah, he talks to.
Deidre.
No, he talks to as a gal, the
Hmm.
redhead guy that was part of the IBS, or
Oh,
uh
Lonnie.
or is it Lonnie?
What's
You know, the red hair, red mustache.
Yeah, what's
That
his
was like his infiltrator spy, because I think he was kind
L-
of like maybe holding his
Lonnie
finger.
Young. Lonnie Young is his
Okay.
name.
And they're on that park bench, and he like pretty
Yep.
much tells him everything, and he goes, you know, Luthen's like, "Oh shit." And then it's sad too for him. He's like, "Please, I want out. I want my family safe." Well, what better way to make sure your family's safe if you just kill him?
Yep.
Because also you see him on the park bench dead, and you're like, "Oh, for everything he's done." But I get it. It's just like they're saying you reference that to like, you getting like insider information, but you want to cut the ties. Just
Well,
like how Cassian does in the beginning of Rogue One with that contact you were talking that you said that he
yeah.
meet.
Well, think about it. Like, if Lonnie all of a sudden goes on the run, then the Empire realizes, okay, this guy's a traitor, so we're going to hunt him down, which also means hunting his family down because, I mean, the Empire will go to any measures to get what they want.
Hmm.
So, they might go after his wife and kid or kids just to capture Lonnie. So, really, if he wants to protect his family, the best thing for Luthen to do, unfortunately, was to take him out because they showed like the Empire thought that he was just killed. They didn't realize that he was like a traitor. They never ended up
Can't con
knowing
can't,
that.
can't confirm
Yeah, they didn't even suspect it. So, because of that, his family is now safe. To the Empire, he just was murdered. Um,
because then like
but
it goes from there. Then he goes back to his shop to like destroy his all of his radio equipment, and that's
yep,
when you get what's her name shows up.
Deidre.
Yep, and then confronts him, and then he kind of has no choice. I was like, oh, this is kind of going too fast of all these main characters, but I'm like, okay, I get it. Um, but the fact that he tried to take his life and it still didn't work
Yeah,
just because of future t or I guess a long, long time ago there was really good futuristic technology.
yep. A long
But
time ago, a lot of yep.
but then how that segues into like the whole like backstory of him and is it Clea, right? Am I
Clea.
saying
Yep,
like
Clea.
that whole backstory of how he was part of the Empire is like I don't know what he was, but he looked like he had enough of it, and
Some
then
kind of like
finds
leadership role within like the military. So I don't know if he was like a general or something like that, but
yeah, and then
commander.
finds whatever planet I'm guessing maybe of what Cleo maybe was, and she's stuck
Yep.
into like one of the vents, and he sees her, and right away he goes, "Well, I want out, and I want to save you." So he kind of like kept her quiet until they got off planet or whatever, and also pretty much like adopts her and
Hmm.
trains her. Like that was like really emotional of like how this like also like this father-daughter connection of someone that p probably should have turned you in and you would have been either a prisoner or I don't know what would have happened, but takes her in, trains her, and how great she was in like her training because even she would always second guess him and confront him about like his choices
Yep.
about things throughout the whole series.
She taught him a lot along the way too. Hmm.
Yep. So, and sometimes like she would t call him out like this is not a safe mission or this is not safe for you or
Yep.
that was a close call. Like what are we doing? Like you're not being careful and um but yeah, just for that end scene then when she does the whole how she's been trained to pretty much infiltrate the hospital, how it's heavily guarded, makes these distractions, gets in, carries ET's mother in the wheelchair.
What?
Where are you taking me?
I think I texted you guys like I was laughing so hard because it was just they're in an elevator. Yeah, to your point, and then the thing just goes, "Ah," and then you see Clea being like, "What?" And it's even captioned. It's like, "What the fuck did you just say?" I was laughing so hard. I'm sorry. And it's like the ET because the ET species is in Star Wars. It's also in what is it, Phantom Menace
Phantom Menace
in
and
the Senate.
yep,
Anyways, continue on and
yeah.
think of
But yeah,
that.
I just like her like just finding all these ways just to get to Luthen and then
Mhm.
have the emotional like kind of like little flashbacks and then she like unplugs him and tears up and gives him a final like kiss on the forehead. It's like saying goodbye to your mentor, your father figure, like. And the other thing too, like, uh, there's not any. Was there any closure to her then after that?
Not really. I mean,
and she's not in Rogue One.
no, she's not.
So that's another, I'd say, a knock and upset that there's not like a where'd she go? What's the closure on that?
Yeah, I mean it's open-ended.
Just the
We,
fact that you said she was a great actress and her role in the story was amazing.
well, and I know so Tony Gilroy was asked because there are a few like open-ended questions
Hmm.
that have developed from the ending of the show, and I've actually got some of them written down here, and he was asked about them. So, and I talked about this on last week when it was just me. Um, but like he was asked about Cassian's sister, like we never got resolution with her. What happened there? What happened with Kino Loy? So Andy Serkis's character from season one, like we don't know what happened to him. And to summarize, Tony Gilroy said like the intention was to keep those open ended because of like that's how it's perceived from Cassian as well, because Cassian doesn't know what happened to all these people. And that was intentional to like drive the character to do all these things based off of unknowns.
Which would
Um,
make sense because the show is called Andor.
yeah,
So this
because
is
it's
coming
about
from
him
everything
from his
Cassian knows,
perspective. Yeah,
minus like the little things, especially the one thing I'm going to add at the very end.
yeah.
But
Because like, what is it? So, why not show resolution for Cassian's sister or Kino Loy? Andy dropped the mic, man, Gilroy explained. What am I going to do that's going to be better than what he did? All it does is minimize that moment. I knew a lot of people were talking about whether we had a way of bringing him back, but I didn't want to have that sort of coincidental environment. Kino Loy is like the sister. People wanted to know if we were going to resolve the sister, and the sister in the beginning is so much more interesting to me as a deficit. She's much more valuable to me for Cassian as an absence. As he says in the end, maybe I should stop saving people. His need to return and save people and to be a savior and the compulsion to do that comes from his hole in his life. And I didn't really want to fill that in. So meaning there's all these holes in his life, and Tony Gilroy did not want to fill in those holes with resolution because that was part of what Cassian's character was. So it was intentional. But I don't know if that's the same for Clea because Clea survived and we know she survived. So to your point, like we don't know really what happens with her. But
so it's just kind of like one of those things again. I think how some screenwriters is like it's not crucial, so
right.
just leave it up to your imagination.
Yeah. That's my interpretation of it.
Because
But
there's
she
plenty of
survived.
yeah, there's plenty. I can't think of anything off topic right off the top of my head that movies and shows that leave ambiguous endings, and it's kind of well, leaving it up to you what you think. Oh, like Interstellar
Yeah. Yep.
when Matthew McConaughey just like flies off, but Anne Hathaway's character is on the planet. Like, well, does he ever get there? Do
Right.
they do they meet up? Do they hook
Right.
up? Like, and start
Or
a
Inception, like when he
oh
spins
yeah,
the
that's
dreidel,
another good one.
like
Did it
does it
topple
fall?
over or
Did it
not?
topple over or did it not?
Yeah. So stuff like
uh
that, like just leave it up to the viewer's imagination is what I heard a lot of like the general answer is, which is fine by me.
which is very on par for Star Wars fans because Star Wars fans speculate so much. I mean, I'm guilty of that. So we kind of build our own head canon of like what happened to these characters if they're left open. So um the other part of it too is like it makes me feel like, all right, Tony Gilroy, maybe there's another story. Maybe she has some kind of connection that leads into Empire Strikes Back. And there's a continuation story that you can have going that way, or the second Death Star. Who knows? So maybe there's potential behind leaving an open story.
And she's part of the whole plan that, many people's died to get
The
these
Both maybe
plans.
she plays a role with the Bothans. And Mon Mothma, when she's talking about that, she seems really devastated about that. which means that she probably has some personal connections. So maybe Clea is involved, and then, she ends up dying in that. Again, see, this is Star Wars fans speculating
Yeah.
all these different hypotheticals or potential. Um, but yeah, so who knows? I do like resolution, but I don't mind the openness either.
No, Sam, especially if it's not crucial
It's if it's not crucial to the story.
to the main story.
Yeah.
It circles back now to the main, just heartbreaking is Bix.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say and especially like was it episode 1 or 2 whenever Cassian goes back to save him on that farm planet
Mm-hmm.
and kills the troops that were just doing an inspection or whatever. Um, and in that scuffle, his like best friend from season 1,
Yep.
he dies,
Yep.
but thankfully Bix is alive.
Yep.
And was that droid? Was that droid there too?
B2. Yep.
Yeah, we didn't even
But
see
B2
barely
did
didn't
we
barely
don't
see any of them.
yeah, he doesn't show up again until the very last scene of the very last
Yeah,
episode.
when they're back on the farm
Yep.
planet.
Yep.
But just like the whole journey every year to year, and then like the trauma Bix has,
Mm-hmm.
and like her journey, and then that she's reunited with Cassian. Cassian's trying to help her, but she wants to go on missions, but he doesn't want her to. Like this whole like conflict of like kind of this love conflict that they have,
Mm-hmm.
um, and trying to help each other out. Um, what was the one episode I'm trying to remember at the very end where she helps him go on a mission and didn't they blow up the was it an interrogation room
Yeah, that was
that she has trauma over? Or I can't remember what they because they were walking away in the building like on the floor just I can't remember that
that
scene.
was the last episode of, so I think that was episode 6.
Okay. Do you
Because
remember what
yeah,
they're blowing up? Because I don't remember now. To me, it was
what are
kind
they
of just a
blowing up?
minor like, oh, go on a mission just to get her out of the house. Because I think Luthen was trying to get her back into the game.
She wanted her healthy because I think he saw her as a very valuable resource.
Yeah, and
But
she was struggling with like her coping
yep,
medicine, whatnot she was taking.
the trauma from the whole torture that she went through. So she
Hmm.
was taking those meds or whatnot to get her right. And Luthen made the comment of like those work, but after a time that it doesn't work. So and he's like, I need you healthy. And she's like, well, I'm healthy now. So
So yeah, but between that, then like we jump forward, and it's like I think Cassian said, I'm out," and they're like living on what planet were they on when they're like living in like a little jungle house?
that was Yavin. That was Yavin.
That was Yavin. That's what okay,
Mhm.
that's what I thought. I just
Yep.
didn't know he must have been like way off, like off base, little
Yep.
house hut.
Yep.
And it looked like they were living a happy life, and I don't know, it just seemed like everything was just like going well. In my mind, I'm like, I thought she in general was just gonna die, just the
Mm.
fact she wasn't in Rogue One.
That's what
Only
I
to
thought
find
too.
out like like they were gonna leave the next morning, or he was gonna leave the next morning, oh, with her, and then she leaves a message saying, "No, the rebellion needs you.
Yep.
I'll be waiting after, and you'll
Yep.
find me."
Yep. She dipped out.
And she goes back to that farm island only to see the very end that you see, it's a isn't it like a like mid trailer like because you see Cassian at Yavin walking towards his ship and
Yep.
he's like ready to leave to go on that mission and you know where that all goes then from there from Rogue One. Only see then it pans over to Bix in that crop field
Yep.
holding a baby and that was just so heartbreaking to like put the pieces together. You're like he never knew
Yeah, he never knew.
and he goes in literally sacrifices himself, which she, I guess, told him to do. Well,
Yeah,
not
and it
sacrifice, but fight for the rebellion, which you gotta imagine your odds are against you.
yep.
So I don't know. That was very heartbreaking to all of a sudden. I was just like, that just like threw me off guard. All of a sudden, I'm like, farm farm planet again. I'm like, where what? And all of a sudden, and she's looking off into the sunset. I was like, oh,
That
that
was
pokes the
very
heart.
shocking. Yeah, that was very shocking to me, and it hit me hard as well. Um, and it's very interesting because the first time watching it through, so you were talking about like when Bix like left him essentially and chose the rebellion. The first time watching it, I interpreted that situation as she was choosing the rebellion as well for herself because it seemed like Cassian wanted out, but and Luthen was trying to bring her in. I thought she was going on her own missions and separating from Cassian and choosing the rebellion because she says, I choose the rebellion. But then after seeing all of it, I'm like, oh, she wasn't choosing the rebellion for her. She was choosing the rebellion for Cassian. She was making that choice for him. I didn't catch that
Oh, that's
uh
a good. Yeah, I didn't.
until the end and like, oh, okay. Because she knew as long as they were together, Cassian was always going to choose her and always put her first. And she knew the rebellion needed him. So she made that choice for him, which only makes it more tragic. So yeah, that was tough. And I know a lot of people are speculating like who's the baby, who's the kid, and everyone's like it's Poe Dameron. No, it's not.
I saw that. Like,
It's not Poe Dameron. His parents are already established, and he wasn't born until like 4 years after the Battle of Yavin. So no, unless I mean, I guess they can always go back and rewrite history type of a thing. But no, that's it's not Poe Dameron. It doesn't need to be anyone. Like it's more significant not being someone outside of just Cassian's kid and the sacrifice he ends up making. It's almost more impactful that way. So leave it like that.
yeah, just leave it like that, and that.
Especially like considering Luthen's line of he's fighting for a sunrise he will never see. So Cassian ended up doing the same thing, and like Bix and the baby are the ones that get to see that sunrise while Cassian is now no longer with us. And you were talking about like how Luthen's death was kind of, how did you put that? Just not uneventful. What did you say?
Um, in that way, I said it was kind of like rushed,
Yeah.
or just kind of like erupt. I think I said, where
Yeah.
I'm just like,
So it was more that it was too quick. Is that what you're,
well,
or
I'd rather have seen like him go out fighting, I guess,
which,
instead of getting caught like that and then
but
having
that
to do what he did and then not working. But then I guess it built a good story to see. Um,
to play devil's advocate a little bit though, like, does it make it more tragic that all he's with everything he's invested into like the rebellion and fighting against the empire, and then the way he goes out is just so like, I don't know,
that's
insignificant. Like,
that's well, that's exactly how I feel. But he's the one that it just kind of, I guess it just adds a little sadness or kind of frustration too, that a person who's worked so hard to pretty much ignite the rebellion.
yep.
I would say he's the key factor why the rebellion started.
Yeah, and
And
I
even
think
like other
Mon
factors.
Mothma agrees to that, and Cassian agrees to that. Yep.
And there's like even other factors that make their own kind of rebellion because they're like, "Oh, well, we'll make our own. We won't join you, but we're going to make our own." What's Forrest Whitaker's like? They're
Yep.
not really part of the rebellion, but they're kind of their own version of it on
Yep.
Jeddah. So it's just like stuff like that where it's like kind of, I don't know, just him not getting to see it for like the fruition of it happening.
Which is
Because
tragic.
all he knows, they've just been infiltrated and they're done.
Yep.
And all he can do so he doesn't get interrogated was try to kill himself.
Yeah.
You
And then
imagine
and
now
then ends up kind of surviving. And then ultimately the way he goes is that Clea just disconnects him from life supporting, machines.
hmm
Very like insignificant death for someone who deserved a lot more. But I think that just adds to the tragedy of Luthen's story. So it's like a double-edged sword. It's really neat, but also like frustrating.
You know what I mean? Like major characters, you always like to see them go out fighting
Yep.
that instead of, but you can't have everybody go out fighting. You got to have little twists and turns that like that, and I guess he didn't do too much. I guess actual fighting. He was very stealthy.
He
I
was
guess.
behind the scenes. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like the
So I guess
puppeteer, like
yeah,
he's like the emperor, but on the good guy's side,
yeah,
like orchestrating everything. But
yeah. I guess I really enjoyed like the one major fight scene in the season one when he was in his starfighter ship.
oh, that was so cool.
That was so freaking cool.
Yep.
How he like I don't know what was it even shot that like blew up the like
Those like mini
the
like
flutter
dart
dish.
dart things.
Yeah, the dart things. I was like, what the heck is this?
Yeah.
Because I think
There's
they
like
had him on a
hundreds of
tractor beam
them.
with didn't they have him on a tractor beam with that dish? And
Yep.
they just blew that up.
Took that out.
And then they're
Then he
like,
had
oh,
those
send
like
out
laser things
yeah, send out the TIE fighters and then just like similar to kind of like the seismic bombs that
from
Boba
Boba
Fett
Fett.
has in a way, like something cool and unique and different. I was like,
Yeah.
that is awesome.
Yeah. It's like, why don't they have more of these ships for the rebellion? Like, these things
Yeah,
could be useful.
which on
It
top of
might
that, it's
take
like, what?
out some of their own ships along the way. Like if it's that like laser and then you're doing like a barrel roll with it. But I don't know. That's freaking sweet ass ship.
No,
That's
I
for
just
sure.
go down like I was like, where is this ship right now? I can't remember if something happened to it or not. Like the rebellion should go find where that is. So when they go on the torpedo run on the Death Star, just have him lead the way,
Yeah. Just
just
do
doing
barrel
this
rolls.
like barrel rolls with the laser all the way down and probably take out all the turrets. Like,
Go down the Death Star trench with that thing.
yeah,
Um, all right. So I'm just gonna read through some of these talking points. These are the ones that I talked through last week. I'll go through each one and just let me know if you have anything like to go off of that. So we already talked about Luthen offing Looney Young. So he's the guy that Luthen killed on the bench. That was like their mole or whatever. We talked about Deidre Miro being sent to Narkina 5. Major Partagat's offs himself. What did you think about that? The
who's
Imperial guy who
oh
took himself out, which
was
the
he
guy
talking?
who came to get him, I feel like there was a level of understanding because what Partagatz was like, can I just have a moment to collect my thoughts? And
Yeah,
I feel like the other guy knew what was going to happen because when he left and they heard the bullet, the stormtroopers were like going to rush in, and he was like, no, he knew what was happening. So what were your thoughts on that?
yeah, that's a good point. That was like pretty dark, and that's kind of like what you see in some of these like again tactical espionage type like films and shows where someone screwed up.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like I know there's always like I'm trying to think of the scene. Have you seen Enemy at the Gates?
Yeah, that's a great movie.
That very beginning scene when they're trying to find because like the one general like can't hold the lines and he's like not having good tactical plans. So the guy above him's like because he's like drinking vodka and he like just put down a Walter PPK or whatever in front of
Yep,
him. Like it's like either that or we hang you or you're fired or firing squad. And he
yep,
goes, no, give me a moment. And then he walks out the door as he takes another swill of vodka, and then you hear boom.
yep,
Like it's that is like I heard like a t typical thing, especially back in the day, where they or at least they showed in movies, like it's something that actually true stories of people just they screwed up, and it's like, well, take the pride and off yourself, or it's like the old samurai way.
yep,
You're a traitor, you fail, you lost the mission, or it was like if you retreat,
yep,
you had to like stab yourself and.
yep.
That whole mentality, which just all that, it was like, damn, that's really dark.
Yeah. It
They
and
put that in Star Wars, like,
the show was pretty dark if you think about it. A lot
which I
of
enjoy. It's like you said,
yeah.
it's very adult thinking
I
and
want more of this level stuff.
concepts. Like, definitely don't want to show a kid this,
Right, right.
but
I
when they get a little older, to understand the concept and understand, like, yeah, that kind of stuff actually does happen in the real world.
yeah. Um, which is funny because my next bullet was how dark and gruesome this show is, which we've kind of talked about it. Um, Connecting elements. So Yavin, did you catch Naboo was in the show?
Yep.
Uh, so Coruscant, Admiral Raddus, and we see the Rogue One crew again. So they're like training and running in those final scenes.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, oh, if you go back and watch season 2, episode 9, so that's when Cassian is getting Mon Mothma out of Coruscant, essentially.
After her speech.
Watch that, yeah, after her speech. Watch that episode and then go watch season 3, episode 18 of Rebels. It's like a perfect connection. Are you writing that down?
Yeah, he said season 3, episode 18
Season 3, episode 18
of Rebels.
of Rebels. Now, obviously, Rebels is going to be a little bit different of a tone compared to Andor. Andor's more adult. Rebels is a little more kid friendly. But if you just watch it in terms of like the continuation story, it's a perfect segue. And you get a little bit more because it's about Gold Squadron escorting Mon Mothma to safety, and the Ghost Crew are like helping him out. And she references the big speech that she gave, calling out Emperor Palpatine. So it's like, oh, we get more of the story in Rebels. So it's worth going back or it's worth going to watch. Rebellions are built on hope. We never talked about that. Where that all started from the hotel clerk. Is that what you want to call him? When it's the episode of the Gorman massacre, and
No, was it wasn't it when Cassian was just visiting there? But he goes back there later.
yeah,
Like
and
the
he
first episode, he's just like a dress tailor
it's
thing.
not that one, it's a later one when he's leaving and Cassian tells him that he's like, I hope you get everything you're looking for, or something along the lines. And then the hotel clerk is like, rebellions are built on hope. And then
See, I don't know if was it that scene or was it the person that escorted him to his room and they were looking out the window and that guy was telling him how his father died.
well,
Because
it's
there
the
was like
same guy. It's the same guy.
but I thought he said it like when they were looking at the monument out the window where he's like, is that where it happened? Like the original like incident massacre where he said his dad had died.
Possible. I would have to go back and watch.
Okay, yeah,
I
but
just
no,
remember
yeah,
I just remember the hotel clerk, which is that I think that same guy. Because
yeah,
he's
because
the
he was
one
working
that
the
throws the
monument.
grenade in the
Yeah,
Gorman fight that goes up, which I don't know, like, did he die from that or not?
probably.
Probably,
It's like a lot of Gormans died.
right. So he tells Cassian that, and then Cassian tells Jin that in Rogue One, and then Jin tells the rebel like council leadership like rebellions are built on hope. So I think that was pretty cool seeing the continuation of that.
It all started with a hotel clerk.
A hotel clerk. Rebellions are built on hope. Melshi's gun, I thought that was a interesting path. So that started as Cyril's gun on Ferrix. So Cassian obtained that when so from season 1, when Cyril and his like, I don't know, cops or whatever you want,
Cops, yeah.
hired security people, they go into Ferrix and they're going to try to capture Cassian. And when Cassian comes across him and puts the gun to Cyril's head and tells him to drop the weapon, he grabs Cyril's weapon. That's the same weapon that he gives Melshi when after they leave Narkina 5, because he's like, here, take this when they're parting ways. So that's Cyril's gun. And then it ends up with Vel when she has all those weapons on the table and she picks it up and she's like, all right, whose weapon is this? And then Melshi claims it. And then he goes into Rogue One and on to Scarif. And so,
That's what that scene was about. I was so
yeah,
confused. And
yeah,
then I totally forgot to look it up. How she, yeah, whose is this?
yep. And it was
And that,
Melshi's.
and Melshi is in Rogue One.
Yeah. And that started from Cyril from season 1.
Wow. Okay. I did not catch that.
So I thought that was pretty cool.
That's a big Easter egg. I remember I did watch like a YouTube video of like Easter eggs you probably missed. They
Yeah,
never mentioned that.
Melchi's gun. Yeah, that
Yeah.
was pretty cool. We talked about B2 being left behind and then Bail Organa. So yeah, those were all the points that um I spoke to last week. The other thing, because we were talking about Tony Gilroy's comments too, the other thing I thought was pretty cool because he was asked, why not bring in Darth Vader or Grand Moff Tarkin into this show? And his response was, if I needed them, I would have brought them in. So like
I
what a power play. It's like I didn't even need them to do well in this show.
didn't even
Like
need them.
like good for you, Tony Gilroy. That's awesome.
Big point though for any future future projects with Bail Organa. I did see the reason why they had a recast of Benjamin Bratt was because the other actor had a conflict.
Okay. It,
That's
it
the reason
had to
why
be because I would find it hard to believe that he
he
wouldn't
would
want
turn
to.
that down,
Yeah. Yeah.
especially when you did Obi-Wan
Yeah.
and you were kind of like not. I guess you had a couple episodes. We had quite a few scenes, but overall you weren't a key like runtime. I guess you didn't get that much time on screen
Right. Right.
versus like something like this. Um,
And
so
to be
yeah, but that's what I
honest,
heard. I heard that there was either acting or family conflict where he just couldn't be there in person wherever they were filming.
which
So
is
they had
too
to
bad
recast.
because I don't know how much more you can use him for. Because
Yeah,
I mean,
that
you
was
have
your last shot,
Andor,
probably.
and then you get blown up in A New Hope, and I mean, unless you do de-aging, and if you go back and you know do some stuff that happens before the prequels or maybe right after the prequels, but I don't know how much more time Star Wars is going to invest into that portion of the era, but
They seem to be
who
hitting
knows?
really hard though in the last decade plus of the time frame between Revenge of the Sith and New Hope. Think of all the content that they've come up with. There's probably plenty more. I mean, they talk about another season of Obi-Wan
Yeah.
potentially.
So here's my question. Is that the most fascinating era of Star Wars? Because I know like there are there's a lot of noise in terms of, you know, we're burnt out from the Skywalker saga. And when they say Skywalker saga, I interpret it as in that era, anywhere from, you know, Phantom Menace all the way to the Rise of Skywalker. Any story that falls within that timeline, people are kind of getting burnt out of. But then like this
I,
Andor show comes up and it just opens the door to me like I want more from this era. There's so many fascinating things and stories to tell. And like maybe because I grew up with the original trilogy, like that's what Star Wars is to me. But obviously there's, Old Republic and stuff like that. There's other eras of Star Wars that you can go into, but is is this oh my dog is moving around. Is this like the most fascinating era of Star Wars?
in regards to content, probably. Just, I mean, because I think Rogue One and Andor really puts it up there.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you look after Return of the Jedi, then you got Mandalorian. I know it's a guilty pleasure of mine. I didn't mind Boba Fett.
I liked it.
I
I
know there's like some things I've seen online where people like rank
I
it.
like how that show started. I thought it was fascinating with the Tusken Raiders. I wish they
Yeah,
would have like kept it in that. I think to me how it spun later in the season and
it's
anyways,
just like
continue.
some of the stupid aspects that I
Yeah.
definitely would say dumb, or like
Yep.
the gadget go gadget guys on their bikes
Yeah.
was so cheesy. But like what's his name? The dark-haired Chewbacca. Oh, that was kick
Oh,
ass.
croissant,
I used to know his name.
black croissant or no,
No, yeah, I think you're getting close.
chrysanthemum. Because he was I'm looking up. Yeah, black chrysanthemum.
Okay. So like it's almost like okay, you can talk about the Skywalker's trilogy like the or the
Saga.
saga. those 9 movies, yes, I'm burnt out on that. Those in between gets me a little interested because the odds
Okay.
are, even like Mandalorian. Yeah, was there a Jedi at one point? Yeah, you had Luke Skywalker show up for a brief moment. You had Ahsoka Tano show up for a brief moment. Did they steal the show? Not that much compared to the main character of Mandalorian.
Right.
So there's aspects in like Book of Boba Fett didn't really have Jedi users. I know they wasted what's the other bounty hunter, the blue guy. I
Django?
hope, huh?
Django? Or no,
No,
oh, you're
the
talking
blue with
about
the red eyes.
Cad Bane.
Cad Bane. I hope he's not dead because they
I,
did
I don't think
tease
he
it.
is. Yeah, because his life thing was still kind of blinking.
Like I was
Yeah,
gonna start beeping, like it's still act. Yeah.
yeah,
So and like all that's like outside of like talking about Luke Skywalker, or talking like Jedi and the Force. Like it's just like actual conflicts within the Star Wars universe. So I mean I think that's kind of like where my if I'm getting out of the Skywalker saga, those are the two elements. It's after Return of the Jedi and after Revenge of the Sith, like those eras
okay,
is kind of what is like really gets my attention. I know they try to do that prequel of the Aculates.
yeah,
Terrible. Okay, there's some good points, but mostly
right. There
no.
are some good, like Chimera was a good character and everything.
Right.
So like if I'm understanding correctly, if people say like I'm burnt out with the Skywalker saga, you would agree with it referring directly to like the Skywalkers. But if there's like the other stories in between, you're still kind of interested in.
Yeah, because like I
Okay.
said, even like Andor, was there anything talked about? Barely anything about Jedi's
Yeah. But
and yeah, go
keep
ahead.
rolling with that because I'm going to use the restroom really quick. So keep explaining to that.
Okay, okay.
I'll be right back.
All right. So yeah, I think that part of like the Skywalker, because I think it really Disney kind of like pushed it too hard during um after Force Awakens and that like sequel trilogy post Return of the Jedi. I felt like that was kind of rushed and not like granted Force Awakens was interesting, but also felt like a repeat of New Hope. But if you look at the next two, it just seemed kind of just ugly writing and Disney, just as they're doing with like their Marvel films, that's just dump things out because fans are gonna go see it and we're gonna fill our pockets up. I think it's just like a money grab, and I think too that they're finally listening to the fan base about having great story writing and not such pushed out garbage. So, welcome back, Budge.
Thank you.
That was quick.
Sorry. I tried to make it quick and I washed my hands. Don't worry. Uh, no, sorry to throw you under the bus. Well, that's not throwing you under the bus, but throwing you to the
Oh, no.
wolves, I should say.
No,
Like, but I
my
really
first
gotta
time
go.
alone time, screen time for
Now,
Mudge
now I get to go
record.
back and see how you did it when I'm
Yeah.
editing.
Just
No,
sort of just to wrap up that I was just saying like the stuff they're coming up with recently is seems a little bit better in a way, but still hitting. They're also missing because it
yeah,
also feels like Disney is pulling like what they're doing with Marvel is just let's just get as much just dump stuff out there quick. And it could be lazy writing, but we have a timeline.
yeah,
Instead of just let's take our time and do this right. I mean, Andor, didn't that take was it 2 years until the second season?
yeah. It took a while.
2.5?
Yep,
Like it
and
clearly looks like they took their time to make sure to do it right.
yeah. Well, and I think what helps is like it was Tony Gilroy. It was Tony Gilroy who did Rogue One. It was Tony Gilroy who did. I mean, he was a major role in season 1 and 2 of Andor, and a lot of the content that Star Wars is releasing as of late, they're more like trying to bring in like multiple people. Like, oh, let's get different people's stories and everything. Well, when you do that, it really impacts the cohesiveness of a story. Like if you just have one person's idea that you're bringing to life, it's a lot more I won't say realistic, but it's more, like I said before, cohesive. And it really makes the story hit a lot better in my eyes.
That's what I was heading on earlier. Was like it seems like when Disney initially kind of took over in the earlier years, it was just like let's pump out these Star Wars movies. When they
Yep.
did Force Awakens, granted, did I enjoy it? Sure. Was it a little bit of a copycat of New Hope? I could say sure.
Hmm.
But then they switched, and that was J.J. Abrams. They go and switch to Ryan Johnson, who does what was the next one called again?
Last Jedi.
Last Jedi. That was dog shit.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, Disney, because like, and I think that was almost like a year turnaround. Like they were trying to pump these out quick. Like every Christmas, there was supposed to be a new Star Wars,
Yep.
and then after that was such a dump show because Ryan Johnson was planned. J.J. Abrams was supposed to oversee everything, but Ryan Johnson directed the second one, and then after that, they had to pull the plug, and J.J. Abrams had to come back in and do the third one. But yet, it's a trilogy, so he's forced to make these like weird story
Changes.
plots to just close the books down, and
Yep.
it was ugly.
Yep. Completely agree.
So it's like in as Disney kind of listening finally somewhat to the fans of like what we just said, like bringing back Tony Gilroy to he did Rogue One. Okay, let's keep this cohesive. That you're gonna do Andor.
Yep.
Just it's just one of those things you got to make sure everything just kind of flows together. Because yeah, some of these shows, I just feel like for example, Solo. I mean, how that kind of fits in is an introduction to Solo and Chewie, but
Yep.
then like these other characters, and then you tease Darth Maul, and then now what? Right? Are you doing anything with that? Is because that I
Right.
mean I'm sure fans like me a little excited, like oh wait,
Yeah.
the return of Darth Maul. Because I mean I'd
Yeah. So
like
there's
to
going to be
see
something with Crimson Dawn, and now
yeah
Maul's going to be with Kira. Is that what her name was
I
from
think
Solo?
so.
Kira.
So it's like where are you going
Going
with
with
this?
this. Hmm.
And if you're not doing it, that's where you get burnt out of like well this movie was very mediocre or shit, but it had some moments where it got me excited if they were making another one. I'd still like to see some sort of like Darth Maul, like where that story is going, and if it ever ends, because I've seen the scene in the cartoon when he finally confronts Obi-Wan
Yeah.
at Tatooine, and I thought that was a kind of a powerful moment. Now, granted, it was a quick one, so maybe you can't really just be satisfied with the cartoon version of it, but
Right. I mean, because I mean, Rebels, there is a good continuation there. But like to your point, Solo kind of introduces Maul into the like crime syndicate world because he's leading Crimson Dawn. So obviously there's a story there, a continuation that should progress from that, which we don't get anything of. All
hmm
we see him next is in Rebels, which we see him at the Sith Temple. I forget, you haven't seen Rebels yet, have you?
no, not yet.
Um, watch it. It's good because you're gonna go see that one episode that's a continuation from Andor. Um, but yeah, there's and it, like when you have what's his name, Park, uh who does Darth Maul. Totally spacing on his name, but anyways,
Yeah,
he's
the actor that plays Darth Maul.
well, Park I think is the Phantom Menace. I think he's the actual, what's his name? I'm really disappointed in myself. I'm just going to contribute it to being past midnight. Uh, Darth Maul voice actor Sam Witwer. Yeah, I'm very disappointed in myself. So Sam Witwer, he's the voice of Darth Maul in the animated shows, so both Clone Wars and um, Rebels, and he actually was, if I remember correctly, Ray Park was the actor in Solo who portrayed Darth Maul at the end there, but it was Sam Witwer's voice that they did the voiceover for it.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
but Sam Witwer is like a huge Star Wars fan and has expressed interest in like wanting to do more Darth Maul. So like you have that potential. Um, so yeah, I want to see more Darth Maul, and I think we will get more Darth Maul, but and I want it live action though too, and I want to see him like wielding a dual lightsaber and doing some like Sith-esque shit.
Oh, hell yeah. And that's what I would like to see because that's one of the coolest things from, you got Phantom Menace, but then you also like kind of like just not your standard single sword. Like Ahsoka's got her tall and short one and how she
Yeah,
makes her different kind of moves, like something different. Like spice it up a little bit, I think would be appreciated from the fan base.
yeah.
But so I mean that's my kind of opinion, but like where's your thoughts on like where's the prime that you think outside of the Skywalker saga, where would you go to make a focus? Would you go more prequel of the prequels, middle,
Well,
post Return Jedi?
I'm just gonna go back to like what I was kind of getting at for me when I was asking you that question. Because if you asked me before, for sure before Andor show in general, but before season two, I was like, okay, let's go into like Old Republic. Let's expand into new areas of Star Wars. But then after Andor, like I was starting to think maybe like what seems to be more fascinating about Star Wars is within that time period between A New Hope and Rise of Skywalker. Because at least to me, being someone who grew up with like the original trilogy, like that's what Star Wars is to me. So I would love to see more like I want to see what this whole Mon Mothma line Bothans many Bothans died. Let's dive more into like the actual rebellion versus the Empire and that whole conflict there. That would be fascinating to me.
Hmm.
But again, that's because of how well Tony Gilroy did with this show. It made those elements of Star Wars seem more fascinating than they were because like how we started out with the with today's recording, we were talking about Star Wars and it's lightsabers, space battles, the Force. Like that's what people want to see. That's what Star Wars is. But then this show made it seem like you don't necessarily need those elements to have a fascinating Star Wars show or movie. So I don't know. I kind of want to see more in this era now. But before the show, I'd be like, let's go elsewhere. Let's go 200 years after Rise of Skywalker, or let's go back to the old Republic. Let's branch somewhere else and get new content. But now, like,
You don't want to like,
now I love seeing the connecting elements. Like, I think back to Marvel, like phase one through because Endgame was that the end of phase four or was that the end of phase three?
or
I want to say it was the end of phase four.
it's either three or four, but we get your point.
But like one of the most interesting, fascinating, captivating things about the Avengers and Marvel was how they were able to connect everything into the bigger, broader story. And when you bring in those connecting elements, it's like that's really cool how they did that. And that's like what Andor did for Star Wars. So now I want to see more of that connecting tissue with the Star Wars saga that we grew up with and know with. That's what I want to see now. But that might change, a few years from now. But like right now, I want to see more Andor shows. I want to see more things between A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back, or between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. Like, let's fill in some of that stuff.
And especially if Disney's, like you said, has all the money in the world. Here's a blank check. Just tell me what you want. Find a crew, because that's what it seems like if you look at this in a broader picture. We did get a trilogy.
Yeah,
Andor season
we,
one, season two, Rogue One trilogy,
yep,
and I'm sure the most of the people working behind the scenes, including the actors and actresses, they were part of the whole thing.
yep,
Keep it, keep the. If you're gonna start a project and you're looking to maybe do like three episodic, like either movies or seasons, keep that cast, keep the screenwriter. Now, granted, maybe they like get through. Let's say there's like a season one of something. They're like, well, that didn't get received well. Can it?
yep,
But it's like, but it's still part of the storyline, right? It's still, I guess I shouldn't say canon. Is it still canon
Right. Yep.
to the story plot of the whole Star Wars universe? So that's kind of makes it hard, but
But yeah, like to your point, Andor is a trilogy. Well, Andor season one, Andor season two, and Rogue One. And if you, depending on how you define success, I would argue that that is the most successful Disney Star Wars product is that trilogy. Now, the money that, Force Awakens and the sequel trilogy brought in, like that's probably more successful in terms of dollars because I want to say, I mean, Last Jedi and Force Awakens, aren't they the top like money getters for Star Wars movies? But like in terms of fan reception, they're definitely not the most successful because Empire Strikes Back, um, A New Hope, Revenge of the
yeah.
Sith, they are the more successful fan reception movies. So in terms of fan reception, I have to believe that Andor season one, Andor season two, and Rogue One are the most successful. Just look at IMDb ratings, look at Rotten Tomato.
Yeah, for enjoyability, but like a money grab, I can get it because I mean, like some of that stuff, even you'd say Mandalorian in a way. I don't know, some of these like darker tone,
Yeah,
we love it because we're mature adults that need a little something.
more serious.
We're watching mature stuff as it is, TV shows and movies, um, versus like Force Awakens or they're probably rated PG.
Right.
So it's a trip to go to the movie theater with your kids or whatever, or get out of the house or a family get together. We're gonna go see Star Wars or something like that.
Yeah.
That's where they get the money grab.
Right.
And I just pulled it up and Force Awakens is number 5 all time of all movies.
Yeah.
And
Last
then
Jedi is up there too, I feel like, even though it was such a divisive movie.
surprisingly, there's a lot of movies that came out after that's topped it, but
Sure.
they're at number 22.
Oh, okay. So that's lower than I
But
anticipated.
you got like movies like Top Gun Maverick, Deadpool Wolverine, the Barbie is ahead of it, Fast and Furious 7. Some of these garbage movies.
Seven was above it?
Fast and Furious 7.
Oh, Fast and Furious. I thought you meant the movie Seven with Brad
Oh
Pitt
no.
and Morgan Freeman.
Yeah, that's a
What's
two
in
for
the box?
what's in the box.
Like that top Last Jedi? That's up there. That's in the top 20.
Can you guess what's number 1? I think you probably know.
Top movie. So is this grossing or just
Grossing all time worldwide.
not Titanic?
You're on the same path.
So Leonardo DiCaprio is in it?
No, but Titanic's number 4.
Okay, Titanic's number four. Was it made in the last 10 years?
No, but its sequel was. When I said Titanic, I'll give you a hint. Director. Do you even know who the director is?
I'm thinking.
You're gonna be like, oh man, how did I not know that?
So the number one movie was not made within the last 10 years, but its sequel was.
Made in 2009.
Is it like Return of the King? No, he didn't do.
No,
Is any of the Lord of the Rings in the top five?
no.
Wow, interesting. This is gonna drive me crazy. It's not Top Gun, you said.
Top Gun's 14 or Top Gun Maverick is
Maverick is 14. Uh, any of the Avenger movies? No.
one
Oh, it
is.
did can't what's his face? Do Titanic Avatar? Is Avatar up there?
Yep.
Okay.
Avatar 1 is all time. Then Avatar the second one
Yeah,
is at
because
number is
what's
at
the
number
director's name?
James Cameron.
Yep. That's what made me like, okay, as soon as the light bulb went off for me, who did Titanic, I'm like, Cameron. And I'm like, oh, Avatar was done by Cameron. And then that's how it connected.
Isn't that crazy? He still has Titanic as number four, and that was made in 1997.
So Cameron has two of the top four.
Three.
Three. So Avatar 2
There's
is that?
Avatar, then Avengers Endgame, then Avatar Way of Water, then Titanic,
Mm.
then five is Force Awakens.
And where does New Hope fall? Problem is, like, do they adjust for inflation?
No, probably not. Yeah, New Hope's not going to be on here. Or like not in the top 50.
Because if it was adjusted, then
Rogue One's at 40, number 47.
okay.
And then Rise of Skywalker at number 42. Turn of the King that you were asking about is at number 32.
Okay.
So I think that used to be super high, but I think especially with all these Marvel films, everything's like the Marvel and the newer Star Wars. Oh, really? Number 22 is last. Oh no, that's the Last Jedi. I was thinking Return of the Jedi.
Oh, okay.
It's like all these newer movies, like the new Super Mario movies at 19.
Well, yeah, because
Except,
nothing's adjusted for inflation.
yeah. So it's,
So there's an advantage there.
but like for Titanic at 1997 to still
Yeah,
be,
that tells you how good of a movie that was, or
yeah,
how.
how many people went and saw that?
Hmm. I mean, it's timeless. It's still a good movie, which is funny. It just made me think of on the way back from the draft. Rusty, Justin, and I stopped at a place to get lunch, and it was near Lake Wissota. And do you know the connecting element with Lake Wissota and the movie Titanic?
That's where Jack's from.
It's where he talked about him and his dad would go fishing.
Go fishing.
But the problem is that when the Titanic sank, that lake was not named yet. So Lake Wissota wasn't Lake Wissota until like a couple years after the Titanic sank. So it's a flawed
In the timeline
yeah,
of
it's a flaw in the timeline of the movie.
no, you can't fool me. I think I'd seen that movie way too much when I was younger. And I always like that. I always like that fascination when you would tell what's her name how he was from Wisconsin, and
Yeah,
that reminds me now. Yeah, he talked about the lake and how he'd go fishing. I was like, damn it, what? Why can't a movie ever say Minnesota?
Minnesota.
Why is it gotta be Wisconsin? When I was
Yeah.
over L.
No, Minnesota's great. They just struggle with their sports, but
Hey, you chose to live here.
well, that's true, but at the same time, they chose me because like I came here to go to school at the University of Minnesota. Um, I got accepted in the U of M. I did get accepted into Wisconsin, but it was like they accepted too many students that year. So then they asked me to do like a 32 credit program at a different UW school. And then after those 32 credits, then I could like
Transfer over or
tra-
whatever.
but the whole time I would be a Wisconsin student, just not
Right.
on Madison
Campus.
campus. But I moved around so much growing up that I didn't want to like continue to move to different places. And I knew three buddies that were going to Minnesota. So I'm like, I'll go to Minnesota. So in
That
a
makes
way,
sense.
Minnesota chose me, but no, I did choose. I like Minnesota. Minnesota's great. It's a great state to live in. Minnesota, Wisconsin. When you think about it, they're really one and the same. They're very similar. There's some differential elements, but
I don't know.
you disagree.
Wisconsin, you got your drunks, but Minnesota, you got your shitty ass drivers.
But Wisconsin is more laid back than Minnesota. People are, I will say that. It was
Well, yeah, because it's definitely there's more like a lot more
more
like
rural in Wisconsin.
yes, a lot of small towns like hole in the wall type places that are when I've gone through Wisconsin has been kind of cool and you probably have better more variety of like campsites and whatnot than
Minnesota's got more beautiful terrain. Like if
well,
I
yeah,
was
we got
asked, would you rather camp in Minnesota or camp in Wisconsin? I would choose Minnesota.
okay.
Like the North Shore is beautiful, boundary
I
wise.
mean, yeah, when you bring up like the highlights, then yes, Minnesota's got more just because, like you said. It's just there's like so many land of 10,000 lakes. So,
Wisconsin's got more lakes. Do you know that?
oh yeah, I want to see some proof.
But Minnesota has more like um volume of lakes, if that makes sense.
Oh, you
So
got
a
like
lot of the
you got
lakes that
like
are
tiny
being
little pockets,
the
and we
little
actually
lakes that are being counted in Wisconsin
when there should be a
versus
pond. You guys
yeah.
are cheating. You call them ponds, or you call them ponds lakes?
Because I'm gonna look it up. Okay, how many? I know we're going off on a huge tangent from Star Wars. So how many lakes in Wisconsin? Wisconsin boasts over 15,000 lakes, while Minnesota is known as the land of 10,000 lakes. Wisconsin has a higher number of lakes due to a less strict definition of what constitutes as a
There
lake.
you. Some guy calls in. Yeah, I just rained really hard. I got this pond in my backyard. I'm gonna call it
Got a new
Lake
lake with
Bullshit.
soda. Lake with soda.
Yeah, Lake with.
And then Titanic is born. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
So it's yeah, it's probably one of those things where it's like a Wisconsin person is like feeling disgruntled about like being super competitive. Oh yeah, Minnesota has more lakes. No, we do. Here's a new lake. We're changing the definition of what a lake is. So now we have more.
We're better.
We're
We're
better.
stronger.
Wisconsin definitely has a more of a pride to it than Minnesota. Too, the people have a Wisconsin pride that's a little more
Pride in general or pride about the lakes?
no pride in general.
Oh, okay.
Which a lot of time I'm not saying people from Wisconsin are arrogant, but with pride usually comes a little bit of arrogance. So there might be a little more arrogance in Wisconsin than Minnesota. Now, this is coming from a Wisconsinite. I'm saying that Wisconsinites tend to be a little more arrogant than Minnesotans, but
But hey, I gotta say, like,
Minnesotans tend to be a little more uptight versus Wisconsinites.
yeah, I can see that.
That's been
Um,
my interpretation.
I mean, getting to know like between like you and Clay and other like Wisconsinites, you guys are pretty chill overall, though. You guys, I went to school in St. Cloud with, you can imagine, Wisconsinites, and
Yeah.
they were very, very just a little over the top,
Yeah.
and they would try to like create an argument, and I'm like, dude, I don't care anymore. That why, like, you're my buddy, but just because I love Minnesota and you love Wisconsin, just agree to disagree. Like,
Like I said,
they
Wisconsins are a little more prideful.
I know, and I was like, it's like they won't. I had a few roommates that like would not shut up until I agreed they were better, and especially like having a fun night, a couple drinks, and it's just like, what is this going to turn into a fist fight? Like, this is not worth it. Like, just let it go. And they just won't. And especially, I was in St. Cloud when the Packers won the Super Bowl.
Mm.
Oh God, my one roommate would not shut up. Oh, the Vikings suck. Look what we got. He went and got like a Greg Jennings, uh, Vikings like cardboard cutout or not
Sure.
or Packer
Packers.
cutout, and I think it was like a sponsorship, and he was like holding like I don't know some cereal thing and like the cardboard cutout. It was like an advertisement thing, and he was like he'd always like because we were like living in like cross dorms, he'd always bring it into like my room and set it up. And I was like, what are you trolling me for? Like, okay, you won the Super Bowl, good for you. And then I think it was that summer, Greg Jennings left and came to Minnesota.
No, he played on the Packers after the Super Bowl.
Like how many seasons? Like it had to be just like one. Because he had that cardboard cutout when we were still in St. Cloud like the following year or two. And when the signing happened, he tore that thing in half and
Oh,
like threw
really?
it. He tore it in half and threw it in my room. It's like, okay, why I got to deal with your garbage?
Yeah, so the Packers won the Super Bowl in the 2010 to 2011 season. He was a Packer from 2006 to 2012.
Okay, so it had to be
So 2010
years later.
to 11,
So
12. Yeah,
not the following season, but the season after he signed with the
he
Vikings.
went to the Vikings.
And that's when because he kept holding that in his bedroom. He kept pointing at it every time I like hang out with him. And I was like, screw you, I don't care. And then when it finally happened, he got so mad because like just the fact that a Packer signed with a Viking.
Yeah. It's like I
Just
gotta
like I
get
know
rid of this.
some people were pissed when Aaron Jones signed with the Vikings, but it's like, well, you guys let him go. Like,
Right. I forgot. Greg Jennings played on the Dolphins for a year. I totally forgot about that.
was that towards like the end of his career?
Yeah, it was his. So he was on the Packers from 2006 to 2012, on the Vikings from 2013 through 2014. So one season. He was only on the Vikings 1 year.
That sounds right. We might have signed him for two.
Well,
We might have had him for 2 years or signed him for 2 years, but we traded him possibly.
but it was probably 2 years because you only hit the next year if you go what into the second round of the playoffs. So if the Vikings didn't make it the year 2014, then they wouldn't have gone into. Okay, so he was probably on them for 2 years.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. Yep.
In the end, I heard though after I don't know if he's still here, but after his career ended, he came back and he stayed in Minnesota.
That's probably true.
And I
Because he was
think
only
for
1 year in Miami, so probably come back to his previous residence.
yeah, because I think his family and kids were in school and something about he did like it here. And then I know he'd show up on K-Fan quite often. I can't remember if he still does that every once in a while or not, but
Well, and I know that he wanted out of Green Bay because he wanted more targets from Aaron Rodgers. So
oh, there's like
then
a
I think
dispute.
that yeah, so I think he like from that ended up not liking Green Bay and so probably didn't want to move back to Wisconsin or anything.
The whole Stefan Diggs thing,
Yeah, something along those
being a little
lines.
diva. I don't get the
Oh yeah.
ball enough.
Well,
Yeah,
Greg Jennings was a diva, that's for sure.
well, he didn't succeed coming here to Minnesota because we didn't have we didn't even have a quarterback.
Oh yeah.
Matt Castle, I think the first year, and then eventually
Christian
Might have been
Ponder.
Christian Ponder. Like,
Yeah.
I bet he had fun with that.
Yeah, it's like, okay, you want more targets. You're getting upset at Aaron Rodgers for wanting more targets, so then you're gonna go to like Matt Castle and
And Christian
Christian
Ponder
Ponder. Okay, Greg Jennings. But I mean, he did well for you guys, didn't he?
because he was the only one we could throw to. It was either him or Kyle Rudolph. Literally,
804, 804 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 742 yards, 6 touchdowns. So not bad,
that's
and didn't
that's that's very
reasonable.
meh. That's like wide
But
receiver two.
considering those quarterbacks, that's probably pretty decent.
Yeah, yeah, true.
But anyways, we've probably gone way off the rails with um so I will wrap it up. But any final things you want to speak to as it relates to Andor or anything on the subject?
No, again, if you did listen to us and get spoiled, it's still worth the watch. The cinematography, everything about it is amazing. So I definitely recommend anyone you listening definitely take it, give it a try. You'll get hooked pretty quick. Again, it's a little different than your typical Star Wars if you're thinking Star Wars with lightsabers, and it's a little different. So definitely recommend it. And then you said we're gonna review next week the what's the show
Tales of the
Tales
Underworld.
Underworld.
You
So
should be able to watch it in like, I mean, if it's 6 episodes, I want to say. And if let's say it's just 20-minute episodes.
no, it should be
So
lower.
2 hours you'll be able to get through it. So it shouldn't
So
take too long. And
everyone listening, look forward to that next week.
yep. And just from my end, like I I just want to see more Andor level storytelling, Andor level depth, acting, adultness to it. I'm not saying everything Star Wars has to be like that level of adult because I mean Star Wars is for everyone. So there are things that need to be more like kid oriented, but like when it's at this adult level, it's gold. I want more of it. I never knew I wanted more things like Andor, and now I know I want to. And just hats off, tip of the cap to Tony Gilroy. You did a fantastic job. You're always welcome back to Star Wars to do more content, and hopefully Disney learns from this and sees what is successful in terms of fan reception, and you know, dives more into it, leans more that direction. So we'll see. um Not much content coming down the pipe. I think we have Visions, a third season of that coming later this year. Ahsoka, I think next year, season 2, I think it's next year. And then the Mandalorian movie is coming out next year as well. So those are the things that are coming up. We got a little time, but definitely still plenty of things to talk about as it relates to Star Wars. So again, if you're listening to us, hit that subscribe button, like, comment, follow, all the above. We greatly appreciate it. Again, we'll have prize giveaway at 200 subscribers. And then, as mentioned before, we'll also have another one at 500. And I know what the handout prize is going to be, and it is going to be worth your money to do it. So we've teased some things on the show about what it could be. But you're going to want to win it. So subscribe to us, be public. And yeah, we look forward to coming back next week talking Tales of the Underworld and many other things. So have a great rest of your day. Have a great rest of your evening, or whatever time it is. I mean, it's 12:39 for us right now, way past my bedtime, and I got to go in the office tomorrow. So again, that's why we're wrapping up. But yeah, have a good rest of your day. Until next time, as always, may the Force be with you.
Thanks for calling. This is Han Solo, and I'm going to be keeping you company for the next few hours right here on the Midnight Shift. Something's down here.